A quiet suburban house, deep in the night. The clock on the wall reads 2:17 a.m. The only sound is its steady ticking. For everyone but one man, it is perfect silence. For him, the room is filled with a low-frequency hum, like the sound of a diesel engine idling. This sound isn't just heard, it's felt, a vibration deep in his chest. He gets up, checks the refrigerator, and looks outside. Nothing. His wife and children are fast asleep, sharing none of his private hell. This contrast is the essence of the torture. It's not just noise, it's complete isolation. This is the beginning of a battle. One man's agonizing perception against an indifferent world that can neither hear nor measure the source of his pain. How can something be so real for him and completely non-existent for everyone else? This personal tragedy is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath it lie two paradoxes that defy simple logic. The first, how can the hum be heard by people with hearing damage, and sometimes even by those deaf in one ear? This directly contradicts the basic laws of acoustics. The second, why is this sound concentrated in quiet, almost pastoral rural areas like Taos, New Mexico, yet is virtually absent in noisy megacities filled with potential sources? This refutes the logic of searching for a noise source. Only 2 to 4% of the population in these so-called hum zones can hear it. In a room of 50 people, only one will suffer, while the other 49 have no idea what he is talking about. In 5 minutes, we will begin to dismantle the first, most obvious theory about the origin of this sound, and you'll understand why everyone was on the wrong track for so long. This investigation is more than just a collection of strange facts. By its end, you won't have a single simple answer, but a comprehensive model. It will explain how completely different factors, ocean waves, geology, the function of cells in our ear, and even psychology, weave together to create the same agonizing reality for 2% of the population. This model works like a river system. Individual streams seem unrelated until you realize they all flow into one great river of anomalous perception. Understanding the hum phenomenon is the key to how our brain constructs reality. You came here asking what this sound is, but you will leave with an understanding of how the world works for those who hear what isn't there. Here is the clear plan for our investigation, broken into 3 key stages. First, in 5 minutes, dismantling the obvious. We will systematically test and debunk the most logical suspects, industrial facilities, and power lines. You will see why they turned out to be a massive red herring. Second, in 12 minutes, the inward turn. We will take the most counterintuitive step in the investigation and ask, what if the elusive source of the sound is not in the external world, but within our own ears? And third, in 18 minutes, phantoms of reality. We will reach the climax and reveal how our brain, the most powerful computer on the planet, can generate sounds on its own, creating a reality that does not objectively exist. Our investigation will begin with the story of a small desert town that first challenged mainstream science. It all began not in Taos, but thousands of miles away in Bristol, England. In the 1970s, more than 800 people independently began to flood city services with complaints about an inexplicable low-frequency hum. This was no longer one person's tragedy, it was a statistic. The first and most obvious theory, which authorities and the press eagerly seized upon, was local industry. It was a simple and convenient explanation. But when researchers began to check the data, the theory collapsed. During strikes, and on weekends, when factories shut down completely, the hum did not cease. 20 years later, the exact same scenario, with the same details, repeated itself in Taos. This proved that Bristol was not an anomaly. The mystery isn't what separates these places, but what unites them. Subsequent measurements would reveal why the most sensitive instruments proved to be useless. This presented scientists with a new paradox. How do you measure subjective suffering? The most sensitive equipment, low-frequency and infrasound microphones, was placed in the homes of hearers. Everyone expected to see a clear spike on the graphs, proving the sound's existence. But the instruments remained silent. This only strengthened the position of skeptics who were ready to dismiss it all as mass hysteria. The turning point came with the study in Taos. The scientists, unable to record the sound, came to an unequivocal conclusion. These people were not crazy and not making it up. They were genuinely hearing something. The paradigm shifted. The question, is there a sound, was replaced by, why can't we measure it? After all, thousands of people around the world described it with identical specificity, like an idling diesel engine. Trying to catch the hum with microphones is like trying to catch dust with a fishing net. The tool may be precise, but it's calibrated for the wrong type of phenomenon. The situation grew more complex when research suggested the problem might not be the sound, but the listeners themselves. Why, in the same house, do only 2 to 4% of the population suffer, while the rest live in blissful silence? The most logical hypothesis was that hearers simply have extraordinarily acute hearing, like a dog that can pick up ultrasound. But when audiologists tested them, reality struck back. Most had perfectly normal hearing, and some even had hearing that was worse than average. The superhearing theory was demolished. Furthermore, some continued to hear the hum in almost completely soundproof chambers, or while being deaf in one ear. In the early 1990s, scientists from Los Alamos National Laboratory, who conducted that very study in Taos, officially confirmed for the first time, these people are not lying. This led the investigation to a shocking conclusion. The problem was far more complex than just sound outside and ear inside. Have you ever heard a sound that no one else seemed to notice? So we have established 3 key facts. First, no, the hum is not a local problem of one city, but a global phenomenon. Second, no, it cannot be detected by standard instruments, although it is real to those who perceive it. And third, no, it is not heard because of exceptionally acute hearing. These 3 refutations are not a dead end, but a crucial step that clears the field of false theories. We have established the rules of the game and understood the criteria the true source must meet. Since it's not local factories, it's time to investigate the global suspects that envelop the entire planet. We will now systematically examine the 3 main culprits, according to popular opinion: power lines, gas pipelines, and secret military systems. The debunking of one of them will particularly surprise you. Power lines are the perfect suspect. They are ubiquitous and do indeed hum at a low frequency of 50 or 60 Hz due to corona discharge and magnetostriction. For many, this seemed like the end of the investigation. But this theory crumbles under the slightest scrutiny. The hum from power lines is easily picked up by any microphone and is audible to absolutely everyone nearby. The global hum, as we've established, is elusive to instruments and selective of its listeners. This is a direct contradiction. Worse, many hum hotspots, like Taos, are located far from major power lines. The hum of power lines is like a steady exhale that everyone hears. The global hum is like a held breath that only the person themselves can feel. This wasn't the only technological threat. The next was even larger and more invisible. This led researchers to target industrial fans and gas pipeline compressor stations. These facilities are true monsters of infrasound, capable of generating powerful low-frequency vibrations that travel for tens of miles. In some cases, residents' complaints of ill health were directly linked to the operation of such stations. It seemed the answer was found. But the map of the hum and the map of industry do not align. The phenomenon's hotspots are not centers of such industry. Moreover, hearers report that the intensity of the hum varies. The sound from a compressor station generating infrasound at over 120 decibels would be monotonous and constant. The real cause was hidden in an area most people don't even consider: the world of military secrets. This brings us to the most captivating theory: secret communication systems for submarines. This is the ideal candidate: secret, powerful, and global. Extremely low frequency. ELF. Communication systems use frequencies from 3 to 300 Hz to penetrate deep into the water. This range perfectly matches the presumed range of the hum. However, most of these powerful transmitters, like the American Project Sanguine in the 1970s, which used a gigantic antenna in Wisconsin to generate 76 Hz waves, were shut down. The hum phenomenon has not subsided with their deactivation. Most importantly, the operation of such systems would be global. The hum, in contrast, manifests in distinct local hotspots. This is a key contradiction. So we have methodically eliminated the 3 main technological suspects: power lines, industrial infrasound, and military communication systems. Each seemed logical but shattered against the facts, the sound's characteristics, geography, or timeline. Each refutation did not weaken the mystery but only intensified it. If the full might of our technosphere is not to blame, then what force could possibly create this effect? We are forced to raise the stakes and move from man-made sources to natural ones, to forces far more ancient and powerful. We were looking for an answer in the noise of civilization, and now we will seek it in the whisper of the planet. The idea that the source is thousands of miles away, in the ocean, seems poetic. Perhaps it is not the noise of machines, but an echo of the planet's eternal breath? The theory of microseisms sounds elegant. Giant waves colliding in the middle of the ocean create a constant low-frequency infrasound that causes the entire Earth's crust to resonate. The planet becomes a quiet bell. But this theory, while explaining a global background noise, fails on the main question: why is the hum so localized? It should be like an acoustic tide, washing over continents uniformly. Instead, we have only a few isolated pools, like Taos. Furthermore, the intensity of microseisms depends on the storm season. It is constantly changing. For many, the hum is an agonizingly constant sound. The next danger proved to be even more fundamental: the very ground beneath our feet. This led to the hypothesis of tectonic activity. Volcanoes and the movement of tectonic plates generate a colossal amount of low-frequency energy. What if some people are a kind of biological seismograph, like animals that sense earthquakes before they happen? The theory is intriguing, but the map of the hum and the map of seismic activity do not match. Many hotspots, like Bristol, England, are geologically completely stable. Any volcanic or tectonic activity capable of generating a constant hum would be immediately detected by the global network of seismographs. But in the hum zones, the instruments are silent. We are at a dead end again. We have checked the technosphere. We have checked nature. And we have found nothing. The key to the mystery lay in the most radical turn imaginable. The source is within us. Let's pause for a moment. We have gone through two major stages of the investigation. First, we examined technological sources, power lines, factories, military systems. Then, natural ones, ocean waves, and the movement of the Earth's crust. Both hypotheses led us to a dead end. At this point in the investigation, which of these two broad theories, technological or natural, still seems more plausible to you? Or perhaps you have developed your own theory? Post your answer in the comments right now, before we move on to the most unexpected part. This will help you solidify your perspective and compare it with what you learn next. So we searched for an external source. We checked everything from machines to the planet itself, and we failed. The central mystery of why instruments are silent while people hear remained unresolved. It was this complete failure that forced researchers to make the most counterintuitive turn in the history of studying this phenomenon. We stop looking outward and, for the first time, look inward. We will journey into the micro-world of the human ear and brain. In the next part, we will confront a shocking truth. Perhaps the enemy that has been sought for decades has always been inside. This turn to the inner world begins with a paradox. Our ears are passive receivers, microphones. How can they generate sound themselves? The answer lies in the phenomenon of spontaneous otoacoustic emissions. Simply put, the hair cells in our inner ear, responsible for hearing, produce very faint but real sounds as part of their normal function. Our ears are not just microphones, they are also tiny, constantly working speakers. This seemed like the perfect solution. People were hearing the sound of their own ears working. But this theory has two fatal flaws. First, these emissions are typically high frequency, while the hum is low frequency. Second, they are masked by any external noise, whereas the hum, conversely, becomes apparent in silence. And this explains why doctors for so long confused it with its more famous counterpart. That counterpart was tinnitus. For any doctor, a complaint of a sound that no one else can hear is a classic symptom of tinnitus, a subjective ringing or hissing in the ears. It's a simple and convenient way to dismiss the problem. But the facts destroy this explanation. Tinnitus is individual. One person hears a squeal, another a crackle. The global hum is described by thousands of people worldwide with astonishing precision, an idling diesel engine. Its frequency lies in a narrow range of 30 to 80 Hz. Such specificity points to a common mechanism, not a random malfunction. And the key argument: many hearers don't just hear the hum, they physically feel it as a vibration in their body, something that almost never occurs with tinnitus. But the strangest part was yet to come, when the hearers themselves took the investigation into their own hands. Isolated and dismissed by mainstream medicine, they found each other on the internet. In the early 2000s, the first online forums and websites dedicated to the hum transformed personal tragedies into a global database. People who had thought they were going crazy for years realized they were not alone. Most importantly, This massive data allowed for the creation of the first ever map of the phenomenon, and it revealed something unexpected. The hum was not scattered randomly across the planet. It was concentrated in distinct geographical clusters, in hotspots: Windsor, Canada; Taos, USA; Bristol, England; Largs, Scotland. This proved that there was some external factor tied to specific locations. A common code was hidden in these places. So we've come full circle. We started by looking for an external source and failed. We looked inside the human body and realized that simple medical explanations don't work. But thanks to the hearers themselves, we now have a new, powerful tool: a global map of anomalies. This is no longer a collection of scattered complaints, it's a database demanding analysis. In the next part, we become criminal investigators. We will lay out the maps of these hotspots and start looking for common clues in their geology, infrastructure, and history. We will test 3 hypotheses about what unites these cities, and one of them is related to water. The world map is on the table. The hotspots are marked: Taos, USA; Bristol, England; Largs, Scotland; Windsor, Canada. A desert, a city, a coast, an industrial zone. They have nothing in common, no shared climate, no similar landscape. What invisible thread connects them? The first theory is elegant. All these points are located on special geological structures that resonate with the Earth's microseismic vibrations. The planet vibrates, and these places amplify it. But geological analysis destroys this theory. The rocky coast of Scotland and the high-altitude desert of Taos are diametrically opposed. They are separated by more than 4,600 miles. There is no common geological platform. We looked for the answer underground, but this failure forced us to look up at the surface. And here we found Windsor, Canada. In this city, the hum is so clearly linked to the industrial Zug Island on the American side that it is simply called the Windsor hum. Here it was, the perfect suspect, a steel mill operating 24/7. The sound intensifies with a certain wind direction, and its intensity is linked to production cycles. It seemed the mystery was solved. All we had to do was find similar factories in other hotspots. But this model collapses the moment we look away from Windsor. Taos has never had heavy industry. In Bristol, despite 800 complaints in the 70s and a parliamentary inquiry, a source was never found. The problem isn't finding a specific source, but understanding the conditions under which it manifests. We are not looking for a specific car model, but for the particular road conditions that make any car noisy. This conclusion led independent researchers, analyzing thousands of reports from online communities, to a discovery that defies common sense. The data showed the opposite of what everyone was looking for. The vast majority of hearers reported the hum from quiet, rural, or suburban areas. The sound always intensified at night, when the background noise of civilization faded. This changes everything. The hum is not something added to noise, but something that emerges in its absence. An analysis of over 10,000 reports showed that 95% of complaints come from areas with background noise below 40 decibels. That's quieter than a typical library. Silence is not a backdrop. It's an active participant. A trigger. Our brain fears a vacuum. So we started with a global map, hoping to find a common denominator. We tested 2 powerful hypotheses, geological and industrial. Both were discarded. This analysis didn't give us a culprit, but it pointed to the scene of the crime, not loud industrial zones, but quiet bedrooms. The hum is born where sounds die. This is the key clue that changes the entire investigation. We have come full circle, from searching for a monster outside to realizing that the echo can be born inside. Now, armed with this clue, we are ready to test the most shocking theory of all, the acoustic phantom hypothesis, where the main suspect is our own brain. How can a person with a missing leg feel an unbearable itch in a heel that no longer exists? This medical paradox, known as phantom limb pain, is the key. The brain has a map of the body. When a part is lost, the corresponding area of the cortex stops receiving signals. In response to this silence, neurons can begin to fire spontaneously, creating completely real sensations. Now, let's apply this to hearing. In conditions of abnormal quiet, or with minor hearing loss at low frequencies, the auditory cortex, deprived of its expected signal, begins to compensate. It amplifies its own internal noise or generates a sound from scratch. It's like a microphone left on in an empty room. It starts picking up and dramatically amplifying the hum of its own electronics. The hum is an acoustic phantom limb, a sound that exists not in the ears, but in the brain. But if it's a personal phantom, why is it the same for everyone? This fact shatters the simple theory. Why do thousands of people on different continents, who have never had contact with each other, describe the hum with chilling accuracy, an idling diesel engine? Individual phantoms are, by definition, unique. Such similarity can only mean one thing: there is a real, objective, low-frequency sound that is just very difficult to detect. It's as if we've returned to the beginning of the investigation. But what if both sides are right? The planet is always filled with faint low-frequency sounds in the 30 to 80 Hz range, microsisms, distant technosphere noise. 98% of people don't notice them. But for the 2% of hearers, this real but inaudible signal serves as a seed or trigger. Their brain then catastrophically amplifies this whisper to the level of torture. The hum is not an illusion, but a hyper-reality. It is a synthesis of the whisper of the earth and an echo in the skull. Hearers are people with a neural microscope, perceiving something that truly exists, but at a level inaccessible to everyone else. For a person who has suffered for years, this discovery initially brings immense relief. They are not crazy. Their suffering is real. There is a scientific explanation that validates their experience. But then comes the realization of the consequences. If the main amplifier of the sound is their own brain, then they can't escape the hum. They can't build a soundproof wall. The enemy travels with them. This explains why moving to a new location only helps some people, and often only temporarily. The conflict ceases to be a battle with the external world and becomes a struggle with one's own perception. It's like trying to run away from your own shadow. He remembered a clear June day in 2003 on a ferry in the middle of a lake. There was only silence and the lapping of water, but a diesel engine roared in his head. At that moment, he understood. The sound wasn't on the ferry. The sound was in him. If the source is elusive and the amplifier is a part of you, is there a solution at all? We have arrived at the most complete answer to the central mystery. The hum is the result of a complex interaction between a faint external world and a hypersensitive internal perceptual system. This is not a simple answer, but a complex one, which underscores the value of the entire journey we've taken. The whisper of the earth and the ghost in the machine served as the trigger. The echo in the skull and acoustic phantoms were the amplifier. The map of anomalies showed us the context. In our final part, we will not seek new answers, but will assemble this model into a single, coherent framework. And this will force us to ask the ultimate question, which shifts the focus from "what is it?" to "what do we do about it?" What is more important for defining reality, objective instruments, or subjective human suffering? The answer to the mystery has three parts. We have gathered all the clues, and now we are ready to assemble them into a unified model. The first part is the trigger. We were wrong to look for a single powerful source, but we were not wrong that a source exists. It is real, but it is everywhere and nowhere at once. Our planet is never completely silent. Every second, colliding ocean waves generate microsismic energy equivalent to a small earthquake. This vibration travels through the entire planet, creating a constant infrasonic hum. To this whisper of the earth is added the ghost in the machine, the background noise of the entire distant technosphere. This sound is absolutely real, but for 98% of people, it is as non-existent as ultraviolet light to the human eye. This is not the cause of the hum, but merely the raw material. The first ingredient. This inaudible background is just the raw material. The second component of our model is the amplifier. If there is a real but faint signal, there must be a mechanism that makes it audible to a select few. And that mechanism is the hearer's brain. Think of it as a radio receiver. The brains of most people are tuned to completely filter out this background noise. But in 2% of the population, the volume knob in the auditory cortex is, for some reason, turned up to maximum. This is the echo in the skull we talked about. The biological mechanism for this can vary, from peculiarities in the hair cells to neuroplasticity that triggers acoustic phantoms in response to sensory deprivation. The suffering of hearers is absolutely real, because their brain is actually processing a sound signal, not inventing it. The only problem is the abnormal calibration of their perceptual system. But even the most powerful amplifier needs specific conditions to work. This is the third and final part of the model, the context. For the perfect storm of the hum to occur, it needs not only a trigger and an amplifier, but also a specific environment. And here, the map of anomalies gives us the final answer. Hotspots, like Taos or Bristol, are not places with the strongest source. They are places with the ideal conditions for its amplification, a very low level of ambient background noise, especially at night. It's like the growth of a seed. The seed, our faint signal, and the soil, the sensitive brain, are already there. But for growth, a third element is needed: water. And that water is silence. In this acoustic vacuum, the brain, deprived of external stimuli, switches to search mode and latches onto that very faint background noise. The hum is the product of three multipliers: a faint real background, multiplied by a hypersensitive brain, multiplied by a quiet environment. Now that all the pieces of the puzzle are in place, we turn to you. At the heart of this complex model lies a fundamental debate. What is the root cause, the trigger? The external world or the internal one? Where should efforts be directed? Toward finding an elusive physical source, or toward studying the anomalies of human perception? We ask you to deliver your verdict. Write just one word in the comments. External. If you believe the primary cause is a real physical sound that must be found and eliminated. Or internal. If you are convinced the key lies in the peculiarities of brain function, which must be studied and treated. This choice is important. It will determine whether hearers ever receive real help. After everything you have learned, listen to the silence that surrounds you. What do you really hear?